Welcome back, everyone. I'm Moel Sumidai. I'm Chief Editor of the Clinical Trial Vanguard. Thanks again for joining us. And I have here with us Carolyn Jin, who is the Director of Clinical Systems and Document Management at Kura Oncology.
That's
Welcome.
Right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here.
Thanks.
So there's been a lot of discussion at this conference about TMF and eTMF management. And how has the implementation of an eTMF at Kura Oncology improved your ability to manage outsourcing relationships with CROs? Can you perhaps provide an example of these existing challenges and how eTMF has streamlined the process?
Sure. So we took, I think, a fairly unique approach to having an in-house eTMF, and we ask our CROs to work within our in-house eTMF, which means that we grant them user access. They're responsible for ensuring that the documents that they generate get into our eTMF system. The approach that we've taken is one that is extremely collaborative. So any of the oversight or management documents, for example, we have a master TMF plan, those we write in conjunction with our CRO partners to ensure that they are totally on board with what the roles and expectations are and that there are no surprises downstream. And we have found that that actually has led to increased engagement and a positive trend in metrics.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how has it contributed towards oversight? I mean, one of the key things FDA is looking at right now is that sponsors should demonstrate appropriate oversight. And of course, one of the things they're looking at is eTMF and the quality of the eTMF. So how have you leveraged eTMF to enhance oversight?
Absolutely. So I think that the approach that we took in terms of it being a very collaborative one with CROs has allowed us to move out of the weeds of the TMF. We are not filing QCing every single document. We're not looking at every single piece of relevant correspondence that comes in. We took, again, a risk-based approach that pulls out all of the documents that are specifically called out in the BIMO manual and assigns those as high risk. And then every 6 months or so, depending on the phase of the study, we circulate those documents to the appropriate internal functional owners in a workflow in the TMF that we affectionately call our SPOC. It's our Sponsor Oversight QC. And that is a really nice way to not take up too much of everyone's time, but it's just enough that it demonstrates oversight and it allows for pinpointing of the issues and, again, trend analysis where we can get in front of any issues before they really become super problematic.
Mm-hmm. You know what they say, trust Dr. Spock.
Exactly.
So what are the best practices that you've established at Kura for improving this oversight? So, you mentioned CRO oversight. Perhaps you can elaborate a bit more on multi-site trials. And how does this tech, particularly eTMF, play a role in maintaining this oversight? You mentioned that you have a SPOC, right? Mm-hmm. FDA, of course, wants to see documentation, right? Mm-hmm. Not just an SOP, that you're actually implementing this SOP. Perhaps you can tell us a bit more about that.
Absolutely. So the nice thing about having the SPOC be embedded within the TMF is that it's all self-evident within the system itself. So we are able to send out the workflows within the TMF, show proof through the audit trail that the documents were reviewed. Part of the SPOC is also looking at the expected document list management and ensuring that the number of documents that are expected for a certain artifact matches what it is that you would expect. And this is very scalable from very small phase 1s all the way up to your global phase 3s or phase 4s. Just because the amount of oversight that you do isn't going to increase broadly with the number of sites. You're still going to be picking, based off of a risk-based approach, a small number of sites to look at and look at that core select number of documents.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And when deciding whether to outsource or insource, you're a medium-sized biopharmaceutical company, correct?
Small-ish, less than 150.
Yeah, so you're getting to that point where you're deciding whether or not you want to insource or outsource. It's a big decision, right? Mm-hmm. What key factors do you consider at Kura Oncology, and how do these decisions impact the overall efficiency and success of your clinical trials?
So I think we are fairly committed to our outsourcing model. We have a pretty lean team, but again, through that risk-based approach to oversight that makes it so scalable, we don't need to build out a huge team. We don't need to constantly be bringing new people in and getting them acclimated or familiarized with our process. It does work whether you have 1 trial or 10 trials or 15 trials. At some point, obviously, you'll need more people to participate, but it is a very, very scalable approach, and that was very intentional when we designed this approach, was that we wanted one that we wouldn't have to, in a couple years, completely overhaul and say, okay, new world order, now that we're this big, we need to do something different. It's really grown with us, and I see continuing to grow with us as we grow.
Mm-hmm. And not hiring 10 people, but instead hiring 1 person. So really, that's where technology plays a huge role in efficiency, cost, right, and scalability. Right.
Absolutely, and 2 of the things that have really facilitated that from the Viva eTMF platform perspective are the TMF bot and the document ingestion, so being able to email documents or relevant correspondence in, as opposed to having a very manual folder on your desktop where you put all the documents and then once a month you dedicate a Friday to uploading. All of that is a thing of the past, and it's really just kind of adding another email address to something that you're sending anyways. Mm-hmm. So it facilitates it, and again, keeping top of mind scalability, and then all of the perks that the Viva eTMF system has to offer has facilitated our decision, again, to have a lean team and a scalable approach.
Mm-hmm. And clinical trial quality and compliance really is critical in clinical trials. We all know this. How does eTMF ensure that you guys at Kura are meeting regulatory requirements while also enhancing this operational efficiency, especially when working with those external partners like CROs? We kind of touched a bit on this before, with the outsourcing model, you're able to oversee things better. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to know, how else would this approach meet the regulatory requirements?
Absolutely. So I think this approach and freeing up our internal folks' time in terms of not being in the weeds and documents day to day has really allowed us to very thoughtfully design our processes with these regulatory requirements in place. So for example, if you take a look at like a 1572, which is a regulatory requirement, getting that into the system in a timely manner, getting it through filing QC, making sure that it's in our regulatory information management system, this is a process that, again, was very thoughtfully designed to be part of that sponsor oversight, but ensuring that everybody knows that this is a high-risk document and ensuring that everybody understands the roles and responsibilities along the way. So the CROs are responsible for uploading and filing QC that document. The study team members, at Kura's case, it's the CTAs, are responsible for ensuring that that document is submission ready and that it's in the right, it has the right quality, and then also downloading and then uploading that document to the regulatory information management system. So all of that compliance is baked into the process, but also integral to the roles and responsibilities for that specific document.
Mm-hmm. And my last question to you, Carolyn, is looking ahead, how do you see the role of eTMF evolving over the next few years, especially in terms of enhancing collaboration with the CROs, improving the overall trial management? I mean, TMF isn't exactly the most exciting topic, right? But there's certainly a lot of interest in it. So,
Definitely.
I mean, what's the future here?
So my hope is that I think that the TMF as really being the sole record of the study, from the very first document all the way to archival, that will be, I think, more holistically appreciated. All of inspection readiness boils down into the TMF, and I think just kind of emphasizing the criticality of that the story of the trial does not exist anywhere else, and it's only able to be fully realized and kind of incorporated through the TMF itself. I'm hoping that the future state will just be a general appreciation for all of that. And then in terms of the CROs, an appreciation for everybody wanting to work towards the same thing. Everybody wants their work on the trial to be remembered and to be appreciated and to work towards an approved drug. And the TMF really facilitates that. So not have it be, the right hand doesn't know what the left is doing, but everybody working towards the same end goal. That is my hope. That's perfect state.
And you mentioned telling a story, right? And a lot of, the adage used to be, okay, the protocol is the blueprint of the clinical trial, but some of the things I've heard recently is that the TMF or ETMF is the blueprint for compliance and operation, telling that story. How does ETMF sort of enable that storytelling, and how easy is it to access all that information in one place versus having, paper documents somewhere or
Totally.
a system where where your information and data is disparate,
So I think one of the things that an eTMF facilitates is the ability to be able to link documents together. So to say, hey, here's a piece of relevant correspondence that pertains to this particular document, and being able to tie those together. So understanding not just we had a protocol amendment, but why did we need a protocol amendment? What changes did we make? Did we simplify the design of our clinical trial? Did we add a cohort? What is it? And then the why behind it. So in terms of being easily digestible, I think having an electronic system really facilitates that. You can do an Amazon keyword search in the TMF for any document that's been OCR'd in a way that you can't really do with paper. And it just is able to bring it all together, but also knowing that the volume of documentation will answer any question about the study that you have. And I think really importantly, telling the story of the clinical trial enables the participants of the clinical trial, that the study team, to emphasize that and to have like an oral narrative to the trial. But the TMF itself, really, it would not be possible without that documentation.
And speaking of OCRing and having all your data in one place, how do you think AI is going to play a role? I mean, do you think that we're going to type a question, tell me about what happened with this study site, and then it'll tell you a story and then reference all those documents inside of this narrative?
It definitely could. I'm very excited about the future of AI. I have a lot of questions, just from a system change management and system validation perspective, about how to validate AI. How do you ensure that something that is constantly learning in ways that are, by design, obscure to us is moving in the right direction? But I think with the appropriate checks and balances, there is a huge role for AI to play in kind of increasing what we've already done in terms of using a risk-based approach and having that human touch in the critical points while relieving the burden and just making it infinitely more scalable than it already is.
Great. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Carolyn?
No, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Thank you. Thank you again so much, Carolyn.
Thanks.
So thank you again for joining us. Again, here we have Carolyn Jin, who is the Director of Clinical Systems and Document Management at Kura Oncology.
Thanks.